Ori and the Will of the Wisps is one of those sequels we all dream about getting for our favorite games. A sequel that builds on the fantastic elements of the previous game while innovating well on the formula and adding new mechanics we wanted and some we didn't even know we wanted. It is clear that the success of the first game emboldened the developers to try to reach greater heights with the second game, and in my opinion, they succeeded. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is a platform adventure metroidvania and a direct sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest. The game was developed by Moon Studios and published by Xbox Game Studios. The game came out first for PC and Xbox One in March 2020, then came to Switch courtesy of IM8-bit in September, and is now also available for Xbox Series X/S after that console's launch in November. Moon Studios took player feedback from the first game about wanting more Ori and a greater amount of content and appropriately expanded the scope of the second game. The reception to the game that came out of this expanded vision was near universal praise from critics, and the game topped 3 million sales, which based on estimates outdoes even the first game's strong sales numbers. Another resounding success for the Light Spirit. Before I get to the story, however, due to the game being a direct sequel, I do have to issue a spoiler warning for Ori and the Blind Forest for this section. If you want to watch the video spoiler-free, just follow the timecode that will take you past any story spoilers. Ori and the Will of the Wisps picks up not long after the end of Blind Forest, with Kuro's egg hatching with a cute baby owl named Ku. Ori, Naru, and Gumo raise her, and she initially has issues flying because she has a damaged wing. This issue is eventually solved by Gumo attaching one of Kuro's old feathers to the wing, which allows Ku to fly. But as she revels in the flight with Ori on her back, they hit a storm and are separated. Unfortunately, they had flown far away from their forest, and this new land is full of dangers and enemies. Ori's initial goal is to find Ku, but another task emerges. Since, as a spirit, Ori may be the only one able to return this unfamiliar land back to a bountiful forest for its many inhabitants. For you see, decay has spread across the land of Niwen, affecting environments and creatures. There are few protected spots left, so Ori must act quickly to beat back the decay. In order to do this, Ori must recover all of the scattered wisps of the forest and unite them to heal the spirit willow. With these two goals in mind, finding Ku and restoring the land, Ori's newest adventure begins. Welcome back, spoiler-free viewers. Here's a spoiler-free summary of Ori's task in the story. Ori has two tasks to find the friend he was separated from and restore the land of Niwen from the decay by uniting the scattered wisps. Thankfully, Ori will have help. This land is ripe with many creatures, some of them friendly, such as the Moki, or the few members of other species that have escaped having their minds warped by the decay. Ori still does not talk, nor do any of the returning characters from Blind Forest, but the inhabitants of Niwen do. Their talk is, for the most part, usual NPC talk, but there's detail and lore involved in some of the dialogue, especially from those characters giving you side quests or hints at special sites to be on the lookout for while exploring. It's not much, but I enjoyed having more story and characters than Blind Forest had. I really think this helped raise the stakes of Ori's efforts to save the homes and lives of all these creatures. On the gameplay side of things, the usual mechanics of exploring around, uncovering secrets, and gaining new abilities is retained, but much of the gameplay has been adjusted from Blind Forest. I'll start with the least changed aspect, which is general exploration. Ori starts with the ability to jump, and that's about it. And over time gains abilities from the ancestral trees to expand where he can go and what he can do. Some abilities gained from the trees include bashing off flying objects, burrowing in sand, and grappling to certain surfaces, among others. These are very helpful when exploring the various different areas, which you're also given a lot more freedom to do in Will of the Wisps, since you can pick in what order you collect the wisps, although the desert area should be done last since the end of the area is locked until you've collected every other wisp. And guess which area I decided to explore first? Learn from my mistakes. Mastering these abilities will also be necessary for the occasional difficult sections of platforming, and especially for the escape sequences. The escape sequences are likely the hardest and most intense part of the game, and at least one of them required so many tries I had to take a break and come back to it the next day. Most of the aforementioned abilities are passive unlocked abilities that you will use in order to access new areas or find new objects to collect in old areas, as per the usual Metroidvania model. However, there are a few abilities that need to be equipped, a change from Blind Forest. Ori now has the ability to equip up to 3 skills on the hotbar to use. These can be attacks, heals, and environmental effects that will be highly useful and are easily cycled out depending on your needs. In order to beat the game, you'll likely need many of the abilities, especially if you want to find all the goodies littered around Nuen. In order to use these abilities though, for the most part, Ori will need energy and life. The blue and green orbs indicate how much of each Ori has at any time, and you can get more if you collect life and energy cell fragments. 2 fragments make a whole cell, and you'll be granted an additional life or energy. There are also some instances of you gaining them through advancement of the story, but for the most part, I advise keeping an eye out for fragments wherever possible. Unlike Blind Forest though, energy is not used to put down save points that you come back to. If you die, you generally go back to the start of the area or encounter as the game autosaves at certain checkpoints. Instead, energy is now used to power most of the abilities. There are some that take 0 energy to use, but there are some that take a significant amount, and you need to be cautious not to run out. The other place you can save though is at the Spirit Wells, which also function as fast travel points that you can use pretty much wherever you are. These points are extremely helpful for exploration of previous areas and also getting back to the other side of the map if you've got a long trek between tasks. One of the biggest and most important Spirit Wells is in the hub area called the Wellspring. Blind Forest didn't have anything like a hub area, so this edition allowed Moon Studios to expand gameplay to accommodate the locale. Now, in addition to life cells and energy cells, there is Gorlock ore you can collect to use to upgrade the area, and many other creatures that will give you side quests for valuable rewards. All of these upgrades and quests will allow you to transform the Wellspring over time, although it is optional if you just want to focus on the main story. I personally found it very exciting to help build up this safe haven and bring it to life, especially given the numerous rewards I got for doing so, in addition to my own personal satisfaction. Even if you don't improve the area, you will likely have to visit it numerous times though in order to upgrade your abilities. In Blind Forest, Ori had an ability tree that was upgraded over time with ability points. That system has been completely changed. Instead, now you collect spirit shards while exploring the map that will give you certain bonuses and abilities. Some of you Blind Forest players will recognize abilities such as the Magnet Shard, which allows Ori to collect resources from defeated enemies from further away, helpful if your foe was killed in a less than convenient spot for Ori to reach. Then there are shards like the Reckless Shard that increases damage dealt and taken by 15%. Initially, Ori can only equip 3 Spirit Shards, but he can gain more shard slots by completing Combat Trines, more on them later, expanding your options, and as with the standard abilities, they can be easily equipped and unequipped at any time. Each of these shards can be upgraded in the Wellspring when talking to Twillin, who also sells some, and you purchase and upgrade them with Light. Light is dropped by enemies, rewarded by quest givers, and can also be found in concentrated clumps in various parts of the map. In addition to upgrading shards and buying shards, Light is used to purchase maps of certain areas, new abilities for the hotbar, usually attacks, and upgrades for those abilities, which brings me to discussing the biggest overhaul for the sequel, combat. In the previous game, combat was simple. You had a floating light companion who shot damage-dealing light shards, I don't remember the right term for the attacks, to destroy enemies. With the ability tree, you were able to upgrade it to target multiple enemies, deal more damage, that sort of thing. For Will of the Wisps, Ori takes on a more active role, specifically gaining the ability to use a light sword. Ori can also use a light spear, a light hammer, a light bow and arrow, basically an array of light-based weapons that can deal a lot of damage. In addition, enemies are far more frequent, varied, and deadly in Will of the Wisps. Some enemies return from Blind Forest, but all the new ones switch up the tactics you'll need to use to dodge away from them and pay them back in kind. Then there are the boss battles. Blind Forest, of course, didn't have boss battles, and Will of the Wisps made some good boss battles. They're dynamic in ways that suit whatever area you've just been exploring, while also giving the player plenty of clues on various ways to defeat the boss. It's just up to you to pull them off. They aren't as difficult as the escape sequences, at least for me, but they certainly amp up the challenge from any other part of the game, so I think the bosses do their jobs well. Finally, we come to the Spirit Trines, and these shrines come in 2 forms: Combat Trines and Spirit Trials. The former pits you against several waves of enemies that you need to defeat in order to get a Spirit Shard slot. The mixture and amount of enemies are the main challenge, and given how useful Spirit Shards are, I recommend taking on each combat shrine you find. As for the Spirit Trials, these are races from one point of the map to another. At first, it's a race against an arbitrary time limit that you get light from as a reward for beating. Afterwards, you can try to beat your own time, or if you're connected to an online feature, you can race against the times of other players. Although the reward for that is just the satisfaction of shaving seconds off your time. I didn't do most of the Spirit Trials, but the couple I did were fun challenges, but I turned my focus to advancing the story and completing the side quests after a few tries. The sheer amount of new content for Will of the Wisps is amazing, and I think easily satisfies people's desire for more Ori. On the presentation side of things, the game also lives up to its predecessor's reputation as a gorgeous game. I especially loved the use of color in Will of the Wisps to help set the mood and distinguish the environment from the first game. It is still clearly derived from the original art, but they varied up the areas more, mainly through the use of color. The areas just seem more artistically distinct, and that coupled with different mechanics in the gameplay made the areas memorable. Also on the visual side of things, I was worried that all of the new additions when it came to shards and abilities might make navigating the menus difficult. Thankfully, they kept it clean and easy to understand, so that cleared up my worries very quickly. Sound-wise, the game has an amazing blend of instruments, especially in the vocals, to produce some beautiful tracks. Inspiring ones, haunting ones, fast-paced ones, slow ones that build to a crescendo, you name it, they have it. Will of the Wisps soundtrack doesn't miss. As with the previous game, the creatures that inhabit the land talk in a made-up language that, while I'm sure would not hold up to Tolkien's scrutiny, conveys the emotion for the game well in the few moments it appears in. Ori's presentation has clearly been a point of emphasis and pride from the development team in Blind Forest and Will of the Wisps. The art of the game stands well on its own regardless of the game, which is why the game being great pushes Will of the Wisps into a special category of game. Ori and the Will of the Wisps reaches amazing heights in every aspect of games that I look at. The story has poignant, emotional moments while still telling a concise tale, the gameplay feels like a confident move forward for the Ori gameplay system, and the presentation sets another high standard for Moon Studios to live up to. If you haven't given the Ori series a try, I think you owe it to yourself to take some time and start Blind Forest. If you played Blind Forest and enjoyed it, Will of the Wisps is a must-play. If you just want to play Will of the Wisps, well, you're in for a fantastic time, even if you might lose out on some story details and emotional resonances from the previous game. I'm grateful to have been introduced to Ori by one of my friends, and I hope I can help do the same for any of you looking for a fun game to play. If you enjoyed the video, leaving a like and comment on it allows my channel's light to shine and beat back the decay spread by the YouTube algorithm. If you want to continue to see my content, subscribing and ringing the bell is the best way to do so. I hope to see you all in the next video. Have a great day, and happy gaming.